Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is Thursday, September 26th, 2024. And this is the Strictly Football Show here on The Unhappy Hour. That is Mike Bara. You might have seen him on TV or read his books, or where else would people know you from, Mike?
Oh, well, there's quite a few bars. The Chandelier Bar at the Aria is a great place to find me.
That's a nice bar. That whole chandelier thing is wild.
It's very
like
nice.
Five stories.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a place like that. Anyway, there's any place in Vegas you can pretty much find me. I'm out. I'm about. You'll see me.
Well, my Cleveland Browns are playing in Las Vegas this week. Two disappointing teams at 1 and 2. I'm sure we will pull that up and talk about it in a moment. But yes, definitely thank you for following us today. My name's Brian Engelman. This is, as I said, Strictly Football. He's a Seahawks fan. I'm a Browns fan. But we're going to kind of go through what happened during the last week of action and then kind of look forward to what to expect and maybe make our prognostications for the week ahead. By the way, before we get into it, Mike, we're kind of wrapping up baseball. Do you have any baseball affinity? Are you a Mariners fan? Are you excited about the A's coming to your backyard?
Well, nobody is a Mariners fan. We're a Mariners sufferer, much like the Factory of Sadness that you have out in Cleveland. We had the same thing in Seattle. It's absolute misery. We did make the playoffs last year by the skin of our teeth, but that's
playoffs.
Playoffs.
Win a game.
Yeah, that's my kitty went in. Once again, they had the best pitching in baseball and literally no offense, and subsequently missed the playoffs in a season when the Houston Astros were ripe for the taking. So it's just another mess, completely screwed up ownership, completely screwed up general manager, Jerry DiPoto. Just don't know what they're doing. And here we are, once again, not going to the World Series.
You've had some great players, man. So the Ken Griffey's, the Ichiros, the Alex Rodriguez's. You've had some really nice talent up there in Seattle over the years.
Well, but it doesn't amount to anything because you have a lot of problems. You have individual pieces, but you don't have any vision or team coherence. I think is the big problem.
Well, on the flip side, like I mentioned there, you're going to be getting a new baseball team. It's the Oakland Athletics. They're going to Las Vegas. I guess they're going to be the Las Vegas Athletics. They used to be the Philadelphia Athletics. That is a well-traveled team, a vagabond team, if you will. But yeah, my Cleveland Indians, they call them the Cleveland G-somethings. I'll call them the Tribe. But they're a half game back of the best record in the American League, neck and neck with the New York Yankees. Half a game separates them. Maybe we have our Cy Young winner, Class A. He's our relief pitcher, set a franchise record, I think 46, 47 saves. He's absolutely lights out. Our bullpen is fantastic. Our starting pitching is fantastic. And we have a shot. I've been waiting for a championship my whole life. So anyways, I pulled up ESPN to kind of go through the games here. I saw all the baseball scores. And I was just curious if you cared, like on your 0 to 100 give a shit meter, how much do you care about the sport of baseball? I'd probably say football is my favorite sport. I love basketball. I love baseball. I love playing some tennis more than I love watching them. But hold on. Now your microphone has gone silent again. I cannot hear you. Doggone it, he says. But I cannot hear you at the moment. If there has been one consistent, I think we got you.
How about now? Yeah.
No.
Something screwed up. I got to restart the whole computer. No?
Is that you're kind of in and out? Do you need to restart it?
No, I think we'll be okay. But can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. No.
It's not synced. It's all out of sync and it's stuttered a little bit.
Okay. Well.
So we are working through a little bit of tech issues here. Mike, if you need me to stall for a minute while you restart, I think you had to do that last week.
No, there's nothing we can really do about it. This is the best we're going to get, I think, for today.
Okay. Yeah. Well, look, and I'm running on my backup laptop computer. As I mentioned.
It'll sync at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, we will figure it out. This might not be that moment. Okay, let's kind of jump into it then. and talk about what we saw in week 3 in the NFL. A couple of surprises and a couple of exactly what we expected. So let's kind of go through last week, starting with the Thursday game. Man, it seems like a million years ago, but Patriots got creamed by the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers was able to get it done. His first home start since his injury, and he looked okay. 281 yards, 2 touchdowns. What did you take away from this game? Is it that the Patriots are pretty bad, the Jets are kind of okay, or just what did you think, Mike?
Well, my buddy Jim Mitchell, who's going to give us some tips for this week. Last week he said, look, teams that play going to overtime on Sunday are 4-23 on the following Thursday night when they have to play. So it was no surprise the Patriots had nothing in the tank. They didn't show up. The Jets kind of took it easy. It was a low energy game. Let's face the reality. And Rodgers looks hesitant, but he's not flinging all over the place. But I mean, all the talent is still there. The feet, the arm talent. I thought the best part about it was when Robert Saleh comes up and tries to hug him, and he pushed him away with, and that shows you what a competitor this guy is. Yeah. And it also shows you how little respect people have for Robert Saleh as a head coach, including the players. That's what I thought was interesting about that game.
Well, I'm sure if you turned on ESPN, they would say the exact opposite. No, they'd say, oh, that vaccine denier, Aaron Rodgers, he's the most unliked player in sports. Look at him. He can't even get along with this coach. I'm sure that's what the woke ABC, ESPN, Disney company was putting out there, putting it on Rodgers because he's a free-thinking jerk. Nobody likes the guy. That's kind of like the opposite. I feel like that was what I heard a bit of that. But I'm still trying to understand. In the moment, like, were they kidding around? It was that he wanted them to hold him on the whole explanation got a little convoluted. I mean, your main takeaway with that, you're not a Robert Saleh fan at all. You've mentioned that in every show that we've done. But why was the push again? He pushed him away because he tried to embrace him, and Rodgers was like, get out of here. I don't like it. Get out of here. The defense, it's not over yet. The defense didn't stop him. Like, what was in his head?
The game wasn't over yet. Why are we celebrating? Who celebrates a game that's not over? And get the fuck out of my face. That's what I got out of it. I think it was more just what are you doing? It's like the third quarter. So I don't blame him for and again, Rodgers is disliked because he proved that ivermectin cures COVID, and that was what got him in trouble.
It's amazing. It's amazing that telling the truth got people in trouble during these last 4 years. I hope everyone remembers this at the ballot box, by the way. The AFC East, we'll talk about it, with some of these other games. But if you look at it, Buffalo's 3-0. New York is 2-1, sitting there one game back. Miami, they're without their quarterback for God knows how long. They're 1-2. New England's 1-2. I mean, the Jets and the Bills are competing for this division title at this point. But if you look at the Patriots for a second, Jacoby Brissett didn't clear triple digits on passing, 98 yards. Gibson, their running back, only had 29 on the night. I mean, they're saying maybe bring in the rookie. If you were running the Patriots, would you bring in another quarterback, or just they have bigger problems than just what's happening at quarterback right now?
Well, they do have bigger problems, but I think there's no rush. I think what you should do is just kind of keep going with what you're doing. Figure out what you do well and what you don't do well before you bring the rookie. And there's no point in rushing him. I would do the same thing they did last week. I would keep starting Brissett, and if the game gets out of hand or you fall far behind, you bring in Drake May and give him a shot, But if you're going to do that, you got to give him some practice reps during the week. And I understand last week they didn't do that, and then they threw him out there. That's like textbook how to screw up a rookie quarterback and shoot his confidence. So I wouldn't do that again. But, I think there's no rush on putting him out there. You can definitely put him out there in week 8 or week 9 and had him play half a season and find out a lot more about Drake May than you're going to find out about him right now. This is only the third time he's ever been on a football field for a real game. So he's ever, suited up. So come on, that's pushing things. I got into a big debate this week with people about developing quarterbacks. People are trying to give up on Will Levis, who I advocated for the Seahawks to draft with either the 5th or 20th pick in 2023. And, I simply pointed out his first 12 games, he's ahead of Peyton Manning's progress, and Peyton Manning's going into the Hall of Fame, and he's ahead of Josh Allen. by miles in terms of his progress. And Josh Allen is, by a lot of people considered the best QB in the league right now. So, don't rush these guys. Give them a chance. They're rookies and they're playing the most complex position in the game, which is quarterback in the NFL. It doesn't get any more complicated than that.
Yeah, and you're right. If you look back at some of the careers of the Peyton Mannings, and you could go down, there's a laundry list of people that didn't jump out of the gate, leading the pack by any stretch. It's I was actually looking at another graphic. It was in one of my Cleveland Browns groups, probably the Unhappy Hour Facebook group, and it was just breaking down all of the bad contracts in sports. I mean, the 49ers gave away 2 or 3 first-round picks and a bunch to get Trey Lance just to get rid of him. 3 of them. It's like Deshaun Watson. Oh, that was a terrible, terrible acquisition. It's like there have been a ton of terrible acquisitions. The Panthers gave up a bunch to get Bryce Young, who they just got benched for Andy Dalton. We'll talk about that. Yeah. But it's really hard to get quarterback right.
You think is you don't get it right unless you take a big chance. And otherwise you end up like the Seahawks where you're, 8-9, 9-8 for the rest of your life. And is that really do you want to really be in purgatory, or do you want to take a big chance and maybe, you're swinging for the fences and you're hoping you at least hit a double, but if you hit a grand slam, man, you're in the Super Bowl these days. So yeah.
I've been doing the Unhappy Hour shows for 13 years or something like that. And I used to have guy Zach Barris on. He did some scouting on the West Coast for college and then the pros. And we'd always bring up the NBA example of the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, there was like a 10, 12-year run there where they were always right around the 7th seed, the 8th seed, the 6th seed, maybe a 5th, but usually 6 or 7, 8. And it's just like you're good enough to make the playoffs, but you're not bad enough to get in the lottery so you can get like one of those impact players to get you over the hump. Like, Is it better to suck and focus on the draft and kind of clean out and go after free agents, or just mired in mediocrity?
And I've got Seahawks Twitter clowns telling me, oh, well, they can just get a guy lower down. They did it with Russell Wilson. And I'm like, Russell Wilson is a once-in-a-generation get in the draft. Seriously, do you seriously think for the second time in 12 years, you're going to find a freaking Hall of Famer in the 3rd fucking round? You're out of your mind. I mean, the only reason the Seahawks got Wilson is because the Jaguars drafted a punter because they thought he was too short at 5'10". I mean, goodness gracious, folks, let's use our brains. If you have a guy, you think he's got the talent, you think he's the guy, you got to go get him. So I don't blame teams for taking chances. But the other thing it tells you, Brian, is so what? What are 3 first-round picks worth? You spent 3 first-round picks to go get Trey Lance 3 years ago, 2 years ago. They've been in the Super Bowl last year, and they've been one of the top teams for the last 3 years, the 49ers. It didn't cost them anything. You can find other ways to get guys on your roster that are good players if you know what you're doing. That's my fear with the Seahawks is they don't know what they're doing. So,
well, that's a perfect segue.
And they don't know what they're doing.
Well, that's a perfect segue to this. I mean, a lot of people are questioning what the New York Giants are doing. Danny Dimes getting that big contract. That was definitely on the list there of questionable decisions regarding the quarterback position. But what are they doing? Talk about the Cleveland Browns. I mean, came out of the gate game 1 looking like trash. Game 2 kind of got it together, but it's still, the lone victory on the season against that team that drafted the punter, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
Not that win. It came down to a Hail Mary in the end zone. It was not a comfortable win, but it was a win. And it's like, all right, look, we got the Giants. Here's a winnable game. Well, let's not look ahead of ourselves. It was nice that Amari Cooper got 2 touchdowns because he's started off really suspect. But we found a way to lose this game. The defense got better for the Browns in the second half, didn't really give up anything to the Giants in the second half, but that 21-point spot was just too much to overcome for this really inept and now injured Cleveland Browns offense. So, we saw a few more big plays out of Deshaun Watson, but really the line was bad. On top of the line being bad, Deshaun still missed a bunch of opportunities that he could have made. What did you take away from this game? 1-2 teams now. Giants.
I've always been a big Deshaun Watson fan since he had He had this 41-38 duel with Russell Wilson in about 2017 or 2018 in Seattle. It was a phenomenal game. It was phenomenal to watch how well he played against the old Legion of Boom, and they were still a thing. And I've just never seen him at that level since, and especially the last couple of years. I don't know what has happened to Deshaun Watson. I've got to believe it's physical because he just can't. He doesn't seem to be able to do the things he used to be able to do. And if that's the situation, there's not much hope. And the OL, everybody's got a bad offensive line, but you got to do what you got to do. You got to find guys off the street or whatever. And, it was unbelievable to me that the Browns lost to the Giants, because I thought the Giants were maybe the worst team in football next to the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, they showed us something. They played better. I think it was Warren Moon came out, I believe it was last week, saying that he thinks the Watson stuff is a lot of it's mental. What did Yogi Berra say? 90% of this game is half mental.
Yeah. Yes.
I think Warren Moon was saying that's what's going on with Deshaun Watson. It's in his head. But he's obviously coming off of that injury with the shoulder. So, I mean, that is the question. What is going on? Is it just unfamiliarity in the system? Does he not know the playbook? Is there a lingering shoulder issue? Is it in his head? There's a lot of
smart. He's definitely smart. I've heard him get a question from a reporter, and he just put the reporter down like, well, if I see this guy at the 6-yard line, sitting in that hole, then I know it's this. And if they do that, then I know it's man. If they do the other thing, then I know it's zone, in which case I'm going to this read, and then I'm going to call it this call to this receiver. I mean, the guy knew the playbook inside and out. So when you say mental, I don't think it's not knowing. I don't think it's that he's dumb.
There's two components to mental. If I can clarify, Mike. Mental is not understanding the playbook, being in over your head. You're in a new system, new terminology. You've always played the game one way, which is where you excelled when in college and in Texas. But now you're in a different scheme and it's just not working. The other side of mental, what I think Warren Moon was specifically talking about, was the weight of all of these legal, all these accusations. There was another batch that came out just a week or two ago after his horrendous week 1 performance, which was one of the lowest QBRs you'll ever see. But I think Warren Moon was saying just the weight of all of these accusations, the courtroom drama, the payouts, the trouble that he's in, that might be what's weighing on him. Not that he doesn't understand the playbook, but he's been beaten down and he's lost his energy. He's lost his focus, his mojo, his confidence, all that stuff.
Yeah, Warren Moon might know a little bit about that because he certainly had his fair share of run-ins with the law and not doing things the right way. So Warren probably knows whereof he speaks there. Yeah, it's like he's got so many distractions. He's not focused enough on football. That could be.
Yeah, and that's a concern for anybody anywhere. I know when Baker Mayfield was with the Browns and he was playing well, everybody loved him. But then when he started playing iffy, and then when he got injured and played like trash that whole season, it was like every time you saw a Progressive commercial with Baker, it's like your head's not in it. Why are you doing commercials? You're clearly not focused on the game. Like they turned on him so fast, I think way too fast. But speaking of turning on him fast, this game started off with a kickoff that the Browns recovery team, the Browns kickoff team, was able to force a takeaway. And on one play, I mean, the old Deshaun Watson chucks it to Amari Cooper, a 24-yard touchdown play. One play, one touchdown. Browns are in commanding lead of this game at home, 7-0. And then kind of the wheels fell off. And they were given ample opportunities through turnovers and good plays to just put some points on the board. But, when Deshaun wasn't struggling to run out of a busted line blocking scheme, he was missing the opportunities that were there. He had 2 touchdowns, Cooper, but it was a tough performance, man. It was a really tough one for me to swallow. It took a lot of energy out of the season for me.
Yeah, well, but the good news is, look, you're 1-2. You're not out of it yet, so keep fighting. Keep plugging away and see what happens.
I appreciate that, and you know what? It's not like the Bengals are doing well this season. They have their struggles. I know the Ravens got a little bit back on track, but they're just 1-2. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, somehow Schittsburg is sitting undefeated with your former quarterback, Russell Wilson, on the bench. He might get that Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady treatment. He might never see the field again the way, Justin Fields is at least getting it done, but we'll talk about that as that game comes up here for the recap. Okay, let's move on. Packers got the win over the Titans. That is Malik Willis showing the Titans what they could have been. And of course, Will Levis, as you mentioned, tossed 2 touchdowns, but did take the loss. What do you make of the 2-1 Packers missing their quarterback and the Titans at 0-3, trying to figure out their thing with Willis? With Will Levis.
Again, the Packers, this is a team that's extremely well coached. And those last 2 performances show they're tough, they're resilient, they're very well coached. If you can get that level of performance out of Malik Willis, good enough to win you 2 football games in the NFL, you are a coaching savant. You are doing the job, you are getting it done. And I think that's really impressive by the Packers. As for Will Levis, again, the guy has played 12 games. He has off the charts physical tools. Just stop hammering him and let him play some football and get good, because it's all there. Everything you want in a modern quarterback is there with the guy physically. Let him play. Let him make his mistakes. You're not contenders anyway. Stop beating up on this guy and let him grow. And that's what I think that the Titans got to do. And, look, the bottom line is they're supposed to have one of the best defenses in the league, and they got run over by the Packers. So, good luck with that, Tennessee. You're just not a very good football team, and it's not your quarterback's fault.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, but I like the point you made about just the Packers being a well-coached team. I brought up Schittsburg a moment ago, and it's just – there are stable franchises and there are unstable franchises. Cleveland has been a mess since Bernie and Bill Belichick. We had our run in the late 80s and the mid to late 90s when the team was stolen. Nick Saban and Bill Belichick on the coaching tree, and we got nothing to show for it. It's just unbelievable. But yeah, the Packers are stable. There's a series of teams, a small echelon of the Chiefs and 49ers that are consistently competitive, and really a lot of the rest of us just kind of fighting for scraps, it seems. But yeah, Packers with a good win. Tennessee's looking like a high draft pick, plenty of season to go. But the Will Levis conversation, they're definitely going to see as much as they can if they're going to have a high draft pick.
Yeah, let's revisit it after the guy has 30 or 25 or 30 starts, and we'll start talking about it. So.
All right, perfect. Fair point. Let's talk about another new quarterback that does not have many performances under his belt. And I will not make an under his belt joke about Caleb Williams, but he threw for 363 yards, 2 touchdowns. However, the Bears fall to 1-2 on the season, losing 21-16 to the 1-2 Colts. The Colts have their own issues as well, but Jonathan Taylor was able to take them across the finish line with 2 touchdowns. Despite some uneven quarterback play from their physically talented, but does he fully understand the nuances of the game quarterback, Anthony Richardson? What say you, Mike?
Well, yeah, I thought Caleb Williams looked pretty good. You can't judge a guy on touchdowns right away. It's only been 3 games. You got to give him a chance to develop that rapport with his receivers. Romo Dunze is injured. He's not really contributing as much as they would like, but he did. Caleb Williams has a future in this league as Cam Newton, if nothing else. Stop picking on him. Anthony Richardson, geez, you just don't know what to think. He looks great one game, he looks terrible the next. You're looking for that consistency, and I don't see it in him. The Seahawks were really high on him in 23, and if they traded up, the rumor was they were going to take him over CJ Stroud, which would have made me blow my brains out. It was better that they didn't even bother to draft a quarterback than it would have been to trade up to the number 1 pick and draft the wrong guy. When me not getting paid to be a GM, Mike Bara, knew that CJ Stroud was going to be phenomenal. They would have picked the wrong guy, Richardson. It was a battle between 2 young quarterbacks who have a lot to learn and a long way to go.
Yeah. And that's why you have 2 1-2 teams there. I just want to give a quick shout out to Jonathan Taylor. He's had some injuries over the years, but a solid performance from him, 110 with 2 touchdowns. And a special mention to former Buckeye running back Trey Sermon. He's bounced around a little bit, but he had a touchdown on the day as well, Mike.
And Jonathan Taylor took off that gay concussion padded helmet thing. What do they call it? Guardian helmet. You finally took that off and just played a game with a regular helmet. And guess what? You did great, John. So hang in there. Taylor is a guy my brother really wanted a few years ago for the Seahawks. They could have taken him in the first, and they've struggled to find great running backs ever since then. So love Jonathan Taylor.
Yes, yes. Well,
Hey, man.
let's talk about this next game over here. Here's a running back, Aaron Jones. I mean, he was kind of tossed on the garbage heap. They wanted the Green Bay Packers rather wanted him to take a pay cut, so he made a business decision. But he's playing for the 3-0 Minnesota Vikings. I feel like we need to get Blake Wally in here. This is his old stomping grounds where he grew up. And look, they dismantled C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans, falling to 2-1. They were. Vikings took this one 34-7. Sam freaking Darnold, 4 touchdowns. Mike, surprised by this, I imagine.
Yeah, surprised because I thought it would be a much closer game than this. It was a really tough pick on tough call on which team to pick. I forget who I picked. I guess I'm going to find it out. But Vikings, again, showing that they are really well coached. And for them to survive, their big future guy, J.J. McCarthy, getting knocked out for the season before the season even started, going to Sam Darnold, but you open up the dictionary and you look up the word journeyman and you see Sam Darnold, a picture of Sam Darnold or Geno Smith, and yet he's playing great. So he's on one of those streaks where he's just playing phenomenal. Only 181 yards, but still good game. Aaron Jones is a great running back. And again, their defense did some things to C.J. Stroud that I don't think he's seen before. And I think that really confused him and frustrated the Texans. So great win for the Vikings. They, in spite of the fact that Sam Darnold is their quarterback, they're a legit 3-0 team. They actually beat a good football team. So congrats to them. And that's my second city. I lived there for 7 years, and I used to kind of root for the Vikings. So.
Oh, I didn't know you lived there you said 7 years in Minnesota?
Bloomington, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, neat. Yeah, I was Cleveland, Los Angeles, and Louisville. So that's kind of my stomping grounds. Yeah, it's this game featured Stephon Diggs, of course, from the Vikings previously, and then the Bills afterward. But yeah, Stephon Diggs is now the number one over there, getting 12 targets. It's just really weird. I got Tank Dell on my fantasy football roster in my dynasty league, and man, I know he had an injury last year, but he has fallen off in targets. He's only getting targeted half as much at 6. Nowhere near the same performance. But Nico Collins strong there, but it just wasn't the Texans' day, like you said. The defense of the Vikings was. What were they doing differently? They were dropping extra men. They were blitzing extra men, or
they were confusing. I think that what they really were doing, what I saw was it looked like they were really disguising whether they were in man and zone really well. And CJ was reading man, and he'd get zone. He'd read zone, and he'd get man. And I just think when he went back, he didn't know where to throw the ball, and as a result, he held it too long. He got sacked a few times, and then the Vikings scored twice very quickly, and it just. Like a snowball rolling downhill. It just got bigger and bigger from there, and they were overwhelmed. So these games happen. Every team's going to have one or two of these games.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right about that. And talking about the next game here, New Orleans Saints, they were undefeated. They looked kind of ridiculous, honestly. They looked like an offensive juggernaut, but the Derek Carr show has come back to earth, only scoring 12 points in this loss to the Eagles. Eagles and Saints now 2-1 on the season. And Saquon Barkley, of course, still crushing it. He is the fantasy football early season MVP, it seems. You usually need to ride the hot hand of the running back to your league title. Sometimes you get him, sometimes you don't. But Saquon so far has been crushing it. And Dallas Goedert, a guy I drafted in my dynasty league as a rookie, very excitedly because I was thin at tight end. That dude went for 10 receptions, 170 yards. As the Eagles get that 15-12 win. What say you on this one, Mike?
Ugly game, surprising. But again, what the Eagles did is they said, look, we're not going to let Derek Carr throw the ball deep to their new receiver. What's his name? I forget the receiver's name. Their main receiver. Not
Rashid Shaheed.
Rashid Shaheed. We're going to take that away and see if Derek Carr can beat us in the intermediate stuff. And he couldn't. And so a great defensive performance. A really clearly very well scouted game for the Eagles. They scouted the Saints really well, took away what they've been doing so successfully, and did not allow them to play with a big lead. And that was significant, kept the game close, made them fight for every yard. And was this game all field goals pretty much? Not, or did Hurts? Yeah,
I got a touchdown from Chris Olave. Chris Olave, shout out to you.
So mostly field goals, but Olave and Barkley each had, I guess Barkley had 2 touchdowns. So just worked out to be a defensive game, physical, and the Eagles were smart, kept it close, took the air out of the ball, and the Saints were not able they were not able to get over the hump this time.
Yeah, I think they're two talented teams. We'll see how the rest of the season shakes out, but yeah, I think if the Saints could be asked if you'd be happy being 2-1 at this point, I think they'd be happy. There is some concern about Jalen Hurts and maybe some of his decision making in this game. No touchdowns, an interception here. Any thoughts on Hurts? I know like he kind of peaked 2 years ago. He's another guy I drafted in my dynasty league. And by the way, for anyone that doesn't pay enough attention to football, I recommend all you got to do is get in a dynasty league or two, and you will quickly follow players throughout their careers, and you will quickly at least skim the results of the games. It helps you stay a super fan without mega time commitment there. But do you have any thoughts on Jalen Hurts being the man at quarterback? I know they've had a couple of the mans who they've paid, Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, and they're gone. So they're all in on Hurts, but is he the right guy?
Yeah, of course he is, because he got him to a Super Bowl. I thought he should have deserved the MVP that year by a mile, and didn't get it. And which is surprising because he's played for an East Coast team. If he was a West Coast guy and his name was Russell Wilson, I could understand him not getting the MVP. But and look, probably would have won the Super Bowl a couple years ago if it worked for the referees against the Chiefs. So he's your guy. He's just got to be in the right scheme that utilizes his skills the right way. And they're adjusting to the loss of Jason Kelsey and some other guys on the offensive line. They're adjusting to that. And that they've been strengthened by a great offensive line, and they don't have that quite as good on OL as they've had the last few years. So
yeah, and I can tell you that's definitely what's plaguing the Browns right now. Like, we have a bunch of problems, and we're still missing our number one running back, Nick Chubb, of course. But yeah, I think we had 3 starting offensive linemen go down, and our rookie out of Ohio State from 2 years ago, DeJuan Jones, they're saying he looks like he's 450 pounds. He can hardly move out there. So his conditioning is being called into question. And it's just, if you don't have an O-line, you're in for a long season. The Browns famously had started 5 quarterbacks last year and still made the playoffs. And the amount of injuries on that offensive line were immense. But I just don't know that we have the depth to withstand it. But, like we said, it's a lot of this game starts and ends with that offensive line. We'll see how they piece it together. I just know the Browns are suffering from letting Bill Callahan go coach with his son, Callahan, who's heading up the Tennessee Titans. They asked, hey, well, my son's the head coach. Can I go play with them? I know I'm under contract. They're like, oh, sure, go. And I'm like, no, you can't let you're the offensive line guru. You're the O-line whisperer. You can't leave. Here's a ball and chain. We're going to lock you to the wall. You're attached. You cannot leave.
I won't pay you really well, but we're going to make you stay. That's what I would do. Yeah,
something like that. But, it is what it is, and we'll see how it shakes out. All right, here's another game here between 2 hard-nosed teams where a lot of it depends on the offensive line performance. Traditionally and lately, the Chargers have been very run-heavy lately. They only score 10 under Harbaugh's leadership in this game against the Steelers with a stout defense. Steelers are 3-0, doggone it, in our division in the AFC North, unfortunately. The headline here being that Justin Fields has been playing mistake-free football, Mike. Did enough to get it done. A touchdown to Calvin Austin III. Najee Harris knocked in 70 yards rushing. And look, Fields, he might not be doing a ton, but look, he's 245 yards, 25 of 32, and he has a touchdown with no big mistakes. I mean, what do you take away from this 20-10 win of the Steelers versus Chargers? Did you learn more about the Steelers or the Chargers here?
More about the Steelers, because the Chargers, 10 a.m. West Coast team, like I've talked about the last couple of weeks, sluggish game. I kind of expected that. I don't remember if I picked the Steelers. I should have. If I didn't, I'm a dumbass. I'm dumb. I picked the Chargers. I'm not going to make that mistake again. And the Steelers were just good enough to get the job done. And that's, again, Justin Fields just doesn't have it in the passing game. Has everything else you want in a quarterback. I think, though, at some point, the Steelers are going to be faced with a situation where they're going to have to throw the ball downfield to win games. And that's when you're going to see Russell Wilson come off the bench and start winning games for them. But that time today is not that day. And Justin Fields did good enough But let's face. Is anybody scared of Justin Fields? Really? You just got to worry about him running, make him pass, and beat you that way.
And by the way, let me add that Justin Fields, former Buckeye, shout out to you. Lots of Buckeyes doing well in the NFL. Congrats. He also added a 5-yard touchdown run of his own. Look, Fields was great on the Buckeyes in college. C.J. Stroud was great on the Buckeyes in college. Like, they were both able to, different players, of course. Dwayne Haskins. I mean, we've had some interesting quarterback play over the past few years, but he's just getting it done. Is he going to be the one to hit you the home run when you need it? That's the question. That remains to be seen. But he has them 3-0. They're in the driver's seat of the division lead. That's huge. Being up 2 games with only 3 games into the season. That makes a difference.
Yeah, that makes a difference. Yep.
So, now I'm getting a huge feedback on your stuff.
Okay, I tried to fix something and it made it worse. Okay.
Yes, I took the gain of your feed and I cranked it up about 40%, trying to equalize it as best I could.
Okay. Well, all right.
Okay, now I think the feedback is gone. That's okay. Cool.
Good.
Anyway, not cool. Steelers win. Also, next game, not cool. Buccaneers lose because I really root for Baker freaking Mayfield. As everybody knows, unfortunately, they only put up 7 points. Not a great game. But look, you've been very adamant. You've been very vocal on Bo Nix and the Broncos, and they had not been a very good team. They were 0-2 coming in, but they walk away 1-2, drop the Buccaneers to 2-1. Nix runs for a TD, and Lutz kicks 4 field goals here. So
yeah,
I guess same question. Did we learn more about the Broncos or the Bucs?
Well, the Bucs probably played a little over their head the first 2 weeks. They put a lot of energy into beating Detroit in week 2. I think they came out beat up, a little slow. Shockingly, the West Coast team on the West Coast time zone, the Broncos go in at 10 a.m. and they were ready to play. They came out to win that game. Bo Nix was really good. He didn't have a touchdown pass again. Doesn't have any yet. That'll come, I think. But he played so much better, so much more in control against a physical team. And I think you really have to say Bo Nix was the big reason the Broncos pulled this game out, because his stats were really pretty good. He was consistent and took what was there, and he got the team down the field. They scored points. That's what matters. And the Buccaneers, had an off day. They had a physical week the week before, and they got beat at home, and that's kind of shocking. But it was a game. It was nice to see Bo Nix take a step forward.
Yeah, I'm a fan of rooting people to success, unless I have a very specific reason to hate everything you stand for. I like watching players succeed.
Yeah, like 49ers, right?
Yeah, 49ers. So that moves Denver. They're out of the winless category. They're 1-2 with the Raiders. And of course, in their division, it's so weird having Los Angeles.
The San Diego Chargers, just call them that. That's what they should be.
My brain literally could not say the word Chargers there. I've lived there for long enough. But anyway, Tampa falls to 2-1, still tied with New Orleans in the standings there in the NFC South. All right, looking for Baker to bounce back. He did have a touchdown run. By the way, Bo Nix, like you said, no touchdown pass, but he did have a touchdown run. So that doesn't quite count, but it's something. Let's talk about this one, a guy that did not run for touchdowns, but look what he did. He slung the ball 319 yards for 3 touchdowns. This is the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton, the guy that just will not go away. Kind of reminds me of the bully on A Christmas Story, but the Panthers snap out of their winless streak, 36-22, beating the Raiders, who fall to 1-2. Wow. What do we make of Bryce Young getting benched and then the Red Rocket hanging 3 touchdowns and a very convincing win over the Raiders?
Shocking. I mean, it was shocking how bad the Panthers beat the Raiders. Again, the Raiders, they had a pretty good win in week 2. I think they beat the Redskins or Commanders or whatever they're called on the road. And then they just absolutely get plastered at home by the Panthers. Not good for the Raiders. But again, the Raiders do not have an elite quarterback. And I like Gardner Minshew. Most people do. I love Gardner Minshew as a backup and a starter for 2 or 3 weeks while your starter is out. I don't love him as a guy you're going to get behind every week because he doesn't have that consistency. And Andy Dalton showing you how it gets done, all that experience, all that experience, all that all that revenge to play for. A lot of I'll show you guys stuff in Andy Dalton, whose big knock was that he wasn't tough enough, he wasn't mean enough, he didn't want to win bad enough, that he was too Christian, too close to God, and didn't have that competitive fuck you edge, and he found it. Played great, and I don't know, what does this say about Bryce Young? I don't know. I don't know, because what happens is when you make a change like this, there's this big emotional gathering, right? We may be looking at Andy Dalton in 3 or 4 or 5 weeks and seeing the same stuff we saw out of Bryce Young. So let's wait on that judgment. Let's wait on that. He looked great yesterday or the other day on Sunday, but we'll see long term if Andy Dalton can maintain that level of performance, and if the Panthers are really that good. I think the answer to both those questions is probably no. So. However, I do think it looks like it's time for Bryce Young to go somewhere else because it just did not work in Carolina.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Baker Mayfield had the same situation. It didn't work for him in Carolina, and went to the Rams and then found a home down in Tampa. So, at the end of this game, they had Aiden O'Connell playing quarterback through a touchdown. So, Gardner did not continue that entire game, although it was mostly out of hand at that point. The Raiders got 15 of their points, kind of in garbage time there.
Shocking that the Panthers could play that well as a unit. Really shocking.
It just goes to show Chuba Hubbard with 114 yards on the day. It just goes to show it's the reminder of any given Sunday, and that it's a long season. It's not baseball. 182 game season.
Yeah.
Whatever it's settled in on now, but. Every game is so damn important with 17 regular season games on the schedule, and every win is important. You look at these standings here, the AFC West and the NFC South. Look, there's not a winless team in either of these divisions now. So when we're talking about the winless teams, the Titans, it starts to really matter if you have 0 wins and you're trying to get that game-changing quarterback in this upcoming draft. So, these meaningless games between the Raiders and the Panthers in week 3, it doesn't mean anything, but every single game means something at the end of the season when you're jockeying.
The NFL is so compelling. Yeah, that's why it's so compelling. Absolutely.
It really is. Well, in the compelling storyline here, moving to the Dolphins Seahawks, this is where you're going to shine, of course. Look, the high-powered, high-flying Dolphins offense, they couldn't do anything with their backup quarterback, and then he got hurt, and then they're down to their third-string quarterback. There's a lot of rumors right now that Bryce Young would look great in a Dolphins jersey. They need him. He probably needs a fresh start. But then again, are they ready to really give up on him at this point? You watch this game as close as anyone, being a Seahawks fan. You guys hung 24 on him, improving to undefeated status. Ring the bell, 3-0 on the season. Dolphins fall to 1-2. Tell me about the game.
Has anybody seen Tyreek Hill? Did the cops arrest him again? Was he even at the game?
Mike,
I think I saw.
Mike, I'll tell you who found him. Let me tell you who found him. I'm in a fantasy football league with my friend Clint from college. Yeah. We co-manage a team. It's kind of like an excuse for us to text each other a little bit more throughout the, whatever. He had it in his mind that the number 1 pick this year should be, guess who? That our number 1 pick in this 12-team league should be Tyreek freaking Hill. We took him the 1 year when he was injured the entire season. Now we took him, and nobody can throw him the ball when he's not in jail, when he's not in handcuffs. So, this has gotten really weird down there. Miami looked like a team to beat. Now they look like a team desperately seeking answers.
They had nothing in that game. They had nothing on offense. They had nothing on defense. They had very low effort. I think they packed it in and were ready to go home by about the end of the third quarter. Tyreek Hill, I don't even remember him touching the ball, honestly. And we have a good secondary. We do not have a great secondary, but their quarterback just couldn't get the ball out. They couldn't get it to Tyreek. Neither one of them. We had a good pass rush, but again, what are we facing? Not a very good Dolphins offense. They had no running game to really speak of. What did they end up? Yeah, like 13 yards rushing or something insane like that. Yeah, they just couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. Zach Charbonnet, my favorite whipping boy, ended up with 91 yards, but he's too slow still.
2 touchdowns. You got me 2 touchdowns in my dynasty league.
Yeah, one of them was a 1-yard run, and the other one was fourth Fourth quarter, beating down the defense. The defense was already on the airplane with 7 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. Not okay.
Well, hold on. No, I'm just gonna say, not to bring up old wounds, but getting a 1-yard touchdown completion from the Seattle Seahawks is something that might have cost a Super Bowl victory not too long ago. So just punching it in, that's really important from the 1-yard line.
I think the thing here is we didn't learn anything about the Seahawks because they've played 3 really terrible teams, or at least teams that were in a terrible state when we played them. Like the Dolphins probably aren't a terrible team, but when we played them, that's probably the worst they're going to look all year, just from everything that was going on with them. There was no fight in them. We beat them up. We walked away. Geno Smith, again, check down Charlie. Almost every completion was within 8 or 9 yards of the line of scrimmage, and then run for another 6, 8, 9 yards. The receivers are doing a good job of that. But here's the thing. 2 interceptions, one of them absolutely terrible when Geno was about to be wrapped up for a safety in his own end zone, throws the ball, foolishly throws it out, way over the guy's head, gets picked off. So he still does stupid things under pressure. Geno's got 3 touchdown passes this year, all 3 on totally broken coverages to wide open guys. He still hasn't thrown a touchdown pass that I would say was contested in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know. Can you say anything about the Seahawks? No, because again, it's like I said the other night. There was a fight in 1972. It was Mike Quarry, the light heavyweight champion Bob Foster, and Mike Quarry, white guy, came in, brother of Jerry Quarry, big white heavyweight guy. And they asked Foster, well, why do you think Mike Quarry is 40 years old? And Foster said, because he hasn't fought anybody. And then Foster knocked him out with 1 punch in the 4th round. Best 1-punch knockout I've ever seen in my life. Same thing with the Seahawks. They're 3-0 because they haven't played anybody yet. So I think we get a test this week. On Monday night against the Lions, we'll have to see what happens on that. But, there's not a lot to take from this game. Everything stayed pretty much the same.
Hey, man, look, you're 3-0. You can take that to the bank. That's sure better than 2-1. It's sure better than 1-2, where my Cleveland Browns are. You're 2 games up on everybody in your like this stuff really matters. You're up on the Cardinals, on the Rams, and the 49ers are 1-2.
Yep.
You're 3-0 in that tough division. Like, congrats. You can take that away. That is something.
I remain skeptical.
And you look, the Steelers a couple years ago were undefeated through 9 games or something, and it was like I was working with a guy, and he said, I'm from this area. He goes, this is the worst undefeated team I have ever seen. This is not going to, and the wheels fell off. They completely fell off. So you're right to be skeptical, but look, prove it. You are what your record says you are, and right now it says you're one of the few undefeated teams. So enjoy it. Yeah, congratulations.
The Seahawks are undefeated. What they are not is impressive. Let's put it that way.
There's the quote of the day. That's what you need to tweet out. That's the Mike Bara tweet that you need at Seahawks Boys, and tag at the unhappy hour _, and we'll retweet it.
That's right.
Okay, let's move to this game. The Ravens and the Cowboys. Wow, here's another set of disappointing 1-2 teams. I would imagine Cowboys lose this one. It's close. 25-28. Cowboys lost it at home. Ravens get their first win on the season. Derrick Henry brushing back father time, rumbling, bumbling, stumbling for 2 touchdowns and 151 yards. And Lamar gets this win. Whew. I mean, there were a lot of points scored here. It was a 3-point game. Did you watch this one, and what did you take away? What impressed you?
I watched parts of it. You should not have paid Dak more than Lamar, because I think that pissed Lamar off. And look, Cowboys are soft. It's face reality. Mike McCarthy is a soft coach. His Packer teams were soft. The Cowboys are soft. And please stop picking the Cowboys. They're just not that good. Ravens are not great this year either, but they were good enough to beat the Cowboys on the road in a win that they desperately had to have. And to me, that's about all you can say about it is you had the team that really needed the win, came in and beat the team that should have been able to hold them off at home. And they just didn't, because they're just simply, the Cowboys are just not that good all around. They're just not.
And I'll just say that first game of the season, Cowboys put a whooping on the Cleveland Browns. So in my head, I'm thinking the Cowboys are good. And look, if you just look at raw data, if you just peel off the raw data with the passing attack of Prescott, 379 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's not a bad day at the office.
You are neither as good nor as bad as you look in week 1, Brian. Just never forget that.
And that's another good axiom to repeat. No, for sure.
That's a David Bara quote. That's my brother, but I think he's dead on about it.
No, but I mean, even just comparing the Lamar Jackson attempts, he had 15 passing attempts in this game. Prescott had 51. I mean, that is just such a diametrically opposed, like these are polar opposite teams. It's like pass, pass, pass. The other one's like run, run, run. We got Derrick Henry, but, Rico Dowdell and Ezekiel Elliott at this stage of his career, that's not really the rushing attack of Emmitt Smith now, is it?
No, it's not. It's not exactly Emmitt Smith. Heck, it's not even Pollard, it's not even to that level. So, yeah, not good.
Yes. So they're working with what they're working with, but end of the day, they are what their record says they are, and those are 1 and 2 teams battling it out for to figure out if you're a team that's going to compete or if it's a team that's going to be retooling. Here's another battle of the 1 and 2s. This is a weird week with a lot of 1 and 2 teams playing each other.
Yeah.
Rams were down quite a bit, but they came back and beat the Niners on a late field goal there. The Rams were winless, but now there's 2 1 and 2 teams. Niners losing once again by 3 to the Rams. Look, Brock Purdy, 3 touchdowns, but they got the loss. Kyron Williams, 2 touchdowns for the Rams. That was good for me in that fantasy league because I needed his points for sure. And Jennings with 3 touchdowns for the Niners. These are teams you're very familiar with. What did you glean from this one? Did anything concern you, or did anything make you laugh at their misery in particular?
No, both teams have problems, but the Rams are really well coached, and they did not quit. They did not quit, and you got to give Sean McVay a lot of credit for keeping his team in the game, keeping them focused. 49ers are just not that good. They got a lot of injuries. They got a lot of problems. There's a lot of strife. They have guys who aren't in football shape yet. They might have lost Trent Williams for a while now, it looks like, after this game. So I just got to say I was grateful for the Rams doing this because I don't think the Rams can sustain beating teams like the 49ers over the course of the season. They've got their own injury problems. It was 2 teams that are in that 2 and 2, 3 and 2 kind of area, that the 49ers have the ceiling where they could go through all the way to the Super Bowl again. Brock Purdy is still great, but they just had one of those games where lots of injuries piled up, and the Rams wouldn't quit. They didn't give up. They won the game. Kudos to them. But I feel like on their best day, and we haven't seen the Seahawks' best day yet. The Seahawks could beat both teams, but we'll see on their best day.
You know what? And I like that you said just the phrase "best day." I would love to see a best day out of the Browns. I've seen garbage for 3 weeks. Yeah. A lucky game 2 win, but man, we look just completely sleepwalking. Like we didn't even participate in OTAs preseason. Yeah. We just showed up expecting to have it figured out, but we didn't.
Yeah. You look like the team that took a 4.5, 5-hour flight out from the coast to play at 10 o'clock in the morning at home. That's what you look like. So it just was miserable.
Well, the Browns are flying out to Las Vegas this week. A lot of people I know are headed out to that.
You're playing in the afternoon when you should at least be awake, and you're only playing the Raiders. Now the question is, will the Raiders be embarrassed by what happened, or will they start to fold up on their coach? That's a good question. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Devontae Adams is. I watched. Did you watch that Receivers special on Netflix? That series?
No, I didn't.
Did you see the quarterback series?
No, I have not seen that one. No.
They're good. If you haven't seen, I think Peyton Manning produces them. They're on Netflix, I think.
Yeah.
Season 1 was quarterbacks. Last year was receivers.
Yeah. There was a big deal there because everybody was making such a big deal out of Russell Wilson having an office when he was in Denver. And then on the quarterbacks thing, they found out that like half the guys in the league, quarterbacks in the league, have their own office in the locker room. So, it's only Russ is a diva though. But Russ is anyway.
I know. Some of these media narratives can be just so tiresome, so taxing, so disingenuous, so fake.
And predictable. So predictable.
Absolutely. Well, was this one predictable? The Lions bouncing back in a victory over the Cardinals. A low score, relatively low scoring game, but Goff hits 2 touchdown passes, and Kyler Murray is slowed down a little bit there. 1 touchdown in the air.
Yeah, again, that game, I'm glad the Lions won because they'll be less desperate to beat the Seahawks on Monday, although I think they're going to still, be fired up for that. Aiden freaking Hutchinson has got to be the best defensive player in the league right now. What do they have? 3 sacks, 5 pressures, forced fumble. I mean, he was just a monster out there, and I thought he was the most impressive thing about that game. It was a tough game. The Cardinals are better than we thought coming into the season. They're tougher. They're resilient. They hold up. They could have won all 3 games they've been in this year, but it didn't work out for them. The Lions hang on. Tough win for them on the road against, like I said, a Cardinals team that's better than you think it is. So good for them. The thing that got me about that was scoreless second half. It doesn't happen that way very often, where you just basically don't score 20-13 at halftime, ended up 20-13. So
we had one little field goal. Little field goal from the Cardinals in the 4th. But yes, other than that, it was 0-0-0-3. So, yeah, one tiny little score. Yeah, it's weird that a game is so delineated at that halftime, so specifically like that.
Yeah, rarely happens that way. What do you think?
I mean, look, the Lions they're a fantastic team. They've earned the right to be among the ones that nobody's going to sleep on Detroit coming to town. It never used to be that way. I mean, you got to go back to what? Eric Kramer and Barry Sanders? Or maybe Calvin Johnson, but they weren't even good during Megatron days. Just they scored a lot of points. They weren't good. This is maybe the first time they're all around a pretty darn good team. Arizona Cardinals, I'm looking to see more out of them. James Conner couldn't get anything going on the ground at all. Marvin Harrison is starting to warm up, though. Got another touchdown this game. He really is a game changer. It's just I think it's what the Browns are suffering from as well. Without the dominant, balanced attack with a running game you need to respect, because Nick Chubb has been injured for a year thanks to Minkah Fitzpatrick of Schittsburg on a dirty-ass play, blowing out his knee. It's tough when you're one-dimensional. Kyler Murray should not be your number 1 rusher. He had 45 yards to James Conner's 17. Yeah. It's out of balance. It's not sustainable.
And the other thing, too, actually brings me back to the Seahawks game. Marvin Harrison Jr., 11 targets. DK Metcalf only got 6 targets the other day. And, people are talking about now you got to pay DK $30 million a year like all the other top receivers. Not for a guy that only touches the ball 6 times or has a chance to touch the ball 6 times. So interesting how efficient the Cardinals are being offensively at getting the ball to their weapons. That's a sign of a really well-coached team. Again, a team that knows what they want to do.
Yeah, you're right about that. But that's the question then. If the Seahawks don't want to pay DK $30 million a year, I mean, is he starting to feel like he's not getting the ball enough? The reason I brought up the receivers thing is because Devontae Adams was on there, and you could, a lot of the storyline was him getting frustrated that they're not even targeting him. He's like, I don't mind if we lose. I feel like I'm one of the best players on this team and I can help us. You got to at least throw it to me a few times to help, give me a chance to try to help. Yeah. And it's like when you don't even get the opportunity to make a play, it starts really agitating you week by week. I think not Braylon Edwards, Odell Beckham Jr., I think that started really creeping and messed up last season with Baker for sure. And if DK's not getting more than 6 looks a game, that's not right.
Well, you don't want to pay a guy that much if he's only going to get 6 looks. So
that is true. So I mean but you raise a good point. Now we should put DK. How long is he under contract for? Do you happen to know?
1 more year after this, so they've pretty much got to make a new deal, or they're going to have a really unhappy camper next year. So, got to pay him in the offseason or trade him.
And we'll get to unhappy campers in a moment with this Bengals game here. Just a couple more games to wrap up. But Jamar Chase finally getting back on track. You mentioned the Chiefs here. Chiefs beat the Falcons 22-17. Chiefs remain undefeated. Falcons fall to 1-2. You mentioned that the so-and-so could have had another Super Bowl, except the Chiefs had the call. We're talking about the Eagles, it was. I am so tired of the Chiefs getting every damn call.
Yeah, you know,
I don't like anything about this anymore. This isn't the New York Yankees. You don't need to bend over backwards for Patrick Mahomes. We're sick of it. The fans are sick of it. We're sick of Taylor Swift. Can you just call an even game? If you would have just called a helmet-to-helmet on Dirty Dan Sorensen, the Browns beat the Chiefs in 2019, 2020, and would have went to the AFC Championship game against the Bills. Our entire trajectory could be different if you would have just called a Chiefs game like an NFL game. Make the obvious calls. Don't do the ticky-tack shit to help Vegas, push the golden children up. I'm so sick of them.
It's like the corruption in politics. It's becoming so obvious now, and the judicial system, that you almost can't hide it. Because again, was that it was decided on a pass interference call? Was it pass interference? Technically, yes. But I'm sitting there watching this going, if that uniform is blue instead of red, and if that's DK Metcalf, they're not calling that. Basically the fourth quarter, late in the game, they're not giving the Seahawks that pass interference call. They're not winning that game on that call. Only the Chiefs seem to get those calls consistently. And I heard a really interesting stat this week. It was really fascinating to me. Patrick Mahomes, in his short, 5-6 year career now, has had 22 interceptions overturned by the officials. Interceptions that he legitimately threw that were given back to the Chiefs in his 6-year career. Tom Brady had 16 in his 20-year career overturned interceptions. There is no question when you look at stats and metrics like that the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes he's been anointed the GOAT because he's black and they want a black GOAT. It's not acceptable to have a white GOAT named Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. And there's no question that there's an agenda to help the Chiefs win football games. And that's the truth.
And you got Mr. Pfizer at tight end, Travis Kelce. I mean, it's the blurred lines. You brought up politics again. Of course, Mike and I do a show called Toxically Masculine Tuesday. Oh, we got a flex. Toxically Masculine Tuesday on Tuesdays on Mike's network. You can find it there. Yeah. And we stream it on our YouTube and X account as well. And we also, hey, you need to join me on Agree to Disagree one of these days. Open invite. We'll talk later, but open invitation to join me on a show. But yeah, Mike, we definitely talk politics. But when you have Mr. Pfizer getting Taylor Swift as a gift to endorse Kamala Harris, and you're trying to watch a Chiefs game, and all they're doing is showing you Taylor Swift, it's like enough of the merging of politics and sports and entertainment. I get why they're doing it, but man, when it is contrived, it is so obvious and it is so off-putting. It leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. When every channel I flip to, it's Travis Kelce rolling up his sleeve to show you his Band-Aid, his Fauci ouchie.
It's annoying, and they get so many calls. And by the way, they're supposed to break up in 2 more days. On the 28th, that's when the contract expires, and then Taylor and Travis have to break up. That got exposed a couple weeks ago. And
that's
the only guy I root for anymore on that team is Travis Butker for standing up for the women and men of America. So good for you. Not Travis Butker.
Harrison
Butker. Good for him.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, thank you for saying that. Good on you. Yes, Harrison Butker got so much grief because he's like, yeah, you know how like whoever they are, they convince the women that they shouldn't raise families and like be awesome in their homes with their kids and their families, and you should go work and be property of somebody else and told what to do, and you value the value of our currency 98%. Harrison's like, yeah, the best. You've been lied to. The best thing we could be doing is raising awesome American families. Now, on one hand, I think a lot of people are not having families because they just can't afford it. But on the other hand, you look at Harrison Butker, it's like, well, yeah, I'll be your trad wife for sure. You're bringing home how many millions? Yeah, I can stay. I don't need to go home and I don't need to go out and work.
You need to clarify that you're talking symbolically here, right? You don't really want to be his trad wife, right, Brian?
Symbolically, I'm playing a character, Mike. Jeez.
There we go. All right, let's go on to the last couple games and get to our picks. I got to get out of here.
Jaguars, Bills whooped on the Jaguars. Jags 0-3, Bills 3-0.
Nothing to say about it. Bills look really good and deserve to be 3-0. Except, the Cardinals played them really well, but they stuck out for that game. The big question here in this game is what has happened to Trevor Lawrence. And You know, he's got to be salvageable. But then you look at this situation where, you know, is the coaching really there for him? And you know, what is going on with Trevor Lawrence? Because he should be better than this at this point. He should be
I
not.
mean, he had Doug Peterson, Urban Meyer. Like, there have been a lot of people around him trying to get the right system in place. They haven't found it. And remember, in college, Trevor was like, he did really well, but then he was kind of exposed by the Buckeyes. Horrible coaching plays overturned that and kind of gave them the win, I believe, if I'm remembering the years correctly. But that's the right question. Is Trevor that good, or is he just not?
He's good, but they're not getting the most out of him, and we got to figure out why. And Doug Peterson, you know, you think, well, this guy who's won the Super Bowl, but that was nearly 10 years ago, and he got ran out of Philly just a few years after that. Maybe Doug Peterson is the problem. I don't know, but that's the big takeaway in this game. So it's a big takeaway.
All right. Well, you know, we're going to find out. They're 0-3. You can't stay winless too many weeks into the season before it's time to play for those top draft picks. And those top draft picks are quarterbacks. Although Trevor did recently get paid. We'll see. Yeah, Josh Allen is looking legit still. Okay, final game of last week. Commanders, look at this. Jaden Daniels. I drafted him in a fantasy league. Very happy about that. They were able to get the 38-33 win over the 0-3 Bengals. Bengals being 0-3 in the Browns division is fantastic. What did Jaden Daniels show you?
That he's going to be an elite quarterback in this league. I mean, for a guy with so little experience, coming from a system that wasn't particularly NFL-like, to play that amazingly well against a good team, against any NFL team, to play like that, the accuracy of the throws, the timing, the intelligence of Jaden Daniels. You know, there's Anthony Richardson is a guy with great physical tools, but you listen to him talk and he's a dumbass, right? Jaden Daniels is no dumbass. Jaden Daniels knows what he's doing out there and has poise and confidence. And wow, what a debut really it's been for Jaden Daniels. I think it's possible the Bears are going to regret not taking him over Caleb Williams when all is said and done, because Caleb Williams looks like he's going to be a headache to a certain extent. Jaden Daniels, this year's CJ Stroud, I think he just looks great so far. And what else can you say about him than that? He checks every box athletically, and also, you know, he reminds me, not physically at all, but watching that game, the first time I've seriously watched Jaden Daniels, it reminded me of the first time I ever watched Russell Wilson play as a starter. Game 3, preseason, Kansas City, and you watch the game, and I'm like, this guy's going to win us the Super Bowl. And I look at Jaden Daniels, and I say to myself, this guy is going to win a Super Bowl. He is. I'm just going to say that right now.
He definitely had an impressive performance. Terry McLaurin, former Buckeye, doing well there, and Jamar Chase, 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
It's so weird looking at the NFC East. Washington is on top, tied with Philadelphia 2-1. New York and Dallas at 1-2. It's a weird season, but look, there's plenty of season to go, and I think that is.
Yeah, let's wait and see how it all settles out. It is early though.
Absolutely. Well, then let's look ahead to Week 4, Mike. And like I said last week, why don't you make your picks first? Because I need to mix it up because my performance is a little lackluster. So I need to kind of wear a different pair of socks for the game day. I need to get some good shoes.
Last week on NFL Game Picker, I believe I was 8-8. Yeah, 8-8 for that week. But I'm 20-12. No, I'm 28-20 for the season. The games I got were the Jets, the Colts. I got the Vikings, the Seahawks, and the Ravens, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills. Other than that, I missed up. So it was, but I'm a little bit ahead because you had such a bad week 1. Let's slide it over to week number 4 and look at who we like in week number 4. Now, I want to read off a couple things. My friend Jim Mitchell sends me these little tips every week. And last week he sent me the tip.
We all need a friend like Jim.
Teams that play overtime on Sunday and then play on Thursday are only 4-23 on those Thursdays against the spread. So, that's a big deal. So I'm looking at this and so he sent me some tips that I want to read off. Dak Prescott is 16-2 straight up against the NFC East. Joe Burrow is 14-6-1 against the spread after a loss. That's something to keep in mind. The Broncos are 4-7 straight up on the road. Brock Purdy is 12-2 against the spread at home. The Browns are 14-21 against the spread after a loss. Something to think about. Gardner Minshew's 9-18 against the spread. The Chiefs, everything about the Chiefs is good in September. The Bills are 7-2 against playoff teams. Lamar Jackson is 12-4 straight up. I'm just trying to read some things that are interesting here. Lions are 24-9 straight up in the last 33 games. They're 21-7 against the spread at home, and Goff is 27-10 against the spread indoors. So some things to keep in mind. Dallas and New York. The Seahawks play the Giants in a week. I would like to say the Giants are going to win, but I think the Cowboys need it, and I think they go in there and get it. I think there's less pressure on the Cowboys on the road than there is at home, to be honest with you, because of the expectations. Bengals and Carolina. Do the Bengals finally get their first win? God, this is a tough call because the Panthers played so well last week. I don't think it can sustain. I like Joe Burrow. I'm going to go with the Bengals. Denver at New York, I'm taking the Jets. I don't think, lightning strikes twice. I think Bo Nix continues to improve. Denver's really not that good. 10 a.m. game. I think the Texans bounce back against the Jaguars, who are just really not good. If I'm not mistaken, isn't this the second time they played the Jags already this year? Didn't they already play them week 1 or 2? I don't know. Yeah. Rams are playing Chicago. I like Chicago at home just because I think the Rams are going to be up and down this year. Packers, Vikings. Jesus. Jordan Love's going to be back for the Packers probably. Packers are hot. Vikings are hotter. Packers are hot. Vikings are hotter.
Flip the coin. The coin.
Packers at home. I think Sam Darnold's going to turn into a pumpkin at some point. I don't know when that's going to be, though. New Orleans, Atlanta. Again, I think that the Saints fall to 2-2 because I think the Falcons are playing pretty well, so I'm going to take them at home. Tampa versus the Eagles, one of the better games of the day. I like Baker. I like Tampa at home. I think they took a beating last week and are going to be mad about it. The Steelers at Indianapolis. Colts are just not that good. I think the Steelers find a way to get it done, even on the road. 49ers at home against the Patriots. That's easy. Washington at Arizona. Boy, I liked Washington. I'm going to go with them, pick them in the upset. I like Cleveland against the Raiders, both teams in disarray, but I think Cleveland will do pretty well. It's because they're your team. The Chiefs, all the Chiefs stuff in September. Chiefs go 4-0. Lamar Jackson, what was it about Lamar Jackson? Is 12-4 straight up. Ravens are great at home. I'm taking the Ravens. No, taking the Bills. Josh Allen is too hot right now. Titans at Dolphins. Titans get their first win. Dolphins fall to 1-3. Seahawks at Detroit on Monday night. That's a Monday game, by the way. This is also a Monday game. Again, you go back and look at Lions 24-9 straight up the last 32. 21-7 against the spread at home. Goff is 27-10 against the spread indoors. The Seahawks have beaten the Lions 2 years in a row in Detroit. I think that streak ends. Both games involved a pick six that put the Seahawks over the top and made the difference. I'm going to take the Lions at home. My Seahawks fall to 3-1. Those are my picks for this week.
All right. Good job. Thank you. I did look up the schedule of the Texans. They did not play the Jaguars yet. They played the Colts, Bears, and Vikings, the first matchup this week against the Jags. Okay, let's go to mine and share this tab instead. Did that pop on the screen?
I'm not seeing.
Let me see. Let me add this here.
There it goes.
I think I'm back up. All right, good. Here we go. So on the season, I am a lowly 22-26 performer. Last week was fairly brutal for me. I was 6-10. And that kind of rivals. Look, 8-8 week 1. I feel like I'm regressing. 8-8, 8-8, and then 6-10.
I had one good week and you had one bad week, and that's the difference right now. So
let's see if I
have a bad week.
Let's see if we can turn it around. I think here, I just watched the New York Football Jets. They showed me a little bit of something. I'm going to go ahead and pick the New York Giants. I don't know why. I felt like they hung in there much more than I expected. So I'm going with the Giants there. This is the Andy Dalton Bowl. And you know what? Look, I'm going to go with the Panthers. I'm just going to go with it. Ride the hot hand. These guys are struggling to figure it out. They are very talented. This is a goofy, risky pick. I understand that. But look, ride the hot hand, and Andy Dalton surely is that at this point. Denver, New York, I'm gonna go with Aaron Rodgers. I think their team is better, especially at home over here. And Mile High, I might have picked them. Let's go ahead and say Jacksonville gets their first win of the season. I'm not convinced that they're such a train wreck. They are 0-3. Like I said, even with the Browns, it came down to a Hail Mary. They have some talent on both sides of the ball. They just have to get it to click at the right times. Let's go ahead and say this is the week they get it right. Los Angeles and Chicago. Oh, they're so banged up, but they're probably well coached. You know what? I'm going to go with the Bears in this one over the Rams, shockingly. Minnesota, I'm going with Minnesota. I think Sam Darnold continues to be a stud. He's going to get that victory. New Orleans, Atlanta, Carr's going to bounce back. I still don't know. I don't know how they're using Bijan Robinson at all. Baker's going to beat the Eagles, Baker and the boys. I can't pick against the Steelers at this point. I hate picking them, but I'm going to go with the Steelers over the Colts. Frisco over New England. I'm not convinced New England has much at this point. I'm going to go hot hand Washington over Arizona, Cleveland over Vegas. I'm going to pick the Chargers here. Going to finally knock out the lucky. I've never seen a more lucky team than the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Lightning Bolts take them down and give them the first loss on the season. And like the same thing I just said there, I'm going to say Baltimore wins and gives the Buffalo Bills their first loss on the season. They're tough at home, and they're just a well-coached team as well. Tennessee, Miami, you said something great. You said this is the worst Miami's going to look all season because the quarterback had almost no reps. All right, with an extra week, I think they're going to throw it to Tyreek a few more times, get a little bit more running game. I'm picking the Dolphins, and then Seattle at Detroit. Oh, geez.
Be smart.
I'm going to go with the Lions. You talked me out of it because you're just so convincing that they haven't played anybody tough. I'm going to go with the Lions in that one. And that wraps up our predictions.
Go back up a little bit. There are a couple picks there. Roll up the screen a little bit.
All right, let's go.
Yeah. Where was the gutsy call?
I had a couple gutsy calls.
Well,
probably Minnesota over Green Bay or Chicago over the Rams. Jacksonville over Houston.
Jacksonville is big balls. That's big balls. But
that's pretty stupid.
Every team's pretty much going to win a game sooner or later, except if you're the 2009 Lions, 2008 Lions, and you're not.
Or the Cleveland Browns of 2017. Yeah. That was
so
cool. Carolina over Cincinnati. That was another gutsy one. New York over Dallas. But my whole pick week was just I'm going to do the opposite of what Mike's doing because I got to try to make up some ground here. So feast or famine, one of us is going to come out way differently than the other.
It's not really a competition. It's just for fun. But it was a great week in the NFL. It should be exciting this week. I think tonight's game is going to be fun to watch. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. Either way, we'll see.
All right, perfect. Tell people anything you want them to know, where to follow you, what you got coming up next.
Seahawk Boy Mike B on Twitter at Seahawk Boy Mike B on Twitter X is a good place to follow me, and I've got Seahawk Boys TV on YouTube and Seahawk Boys TV on Rumble. Follow the channel. I didn't do a Seahawks video this week because I felt like I didn't have anything to say because it was pretty obvious what was going on in that game. So I suspect I will have more to say this week. And let me just tell everybody, I love my Hawks, but Geno Smith is not elite. He's not.
What would it take for you to be convinced Geno's elite? What would it take? A Super Bowl win?
He'd have to play
a
great,
consistently strong season and a Super Bowl win.
This is never going to do that. He hasn't done it yet, so he's not going to. He hasn't done it this year. So
any given year. All right. Well,
we'd have to get really lucky to even get to a Super Bowl with Geno.
Well, that's every team in the league, by the way. Every team needs a little bit of luck on their side for sure. All right, Mike, thank you very much. And to everybody else, make sure you're following the New American Media and the Unhappy Hour in all of the platforms. And we'll be back on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern to deliver you another Strictly Football episode. Mike, is Brooks coming back on Tuesday? Or
I think he may be back by then, but we shall see. I don't know if we're going to need you another week. I think he said 3 or 4 weeks. It's been 3, so we'll see.
You let me know. I
appreciate you coming in on Toxically Masculine Tuesday and filling out the role.
Anytime. Thank you so much, Mike. We'll see you next Thursday, everybody.